Welcome, everybody, to the Three Doves podcast. I'm your host, Jason Pawloski. And on today's episode, Krista Klausner joins me as she shares her journey of faith through motherhood, teenagers, and loss, reminding us it's okay not to be okay. I'm sitting here with Krista Klausner. Krista, thank you for being on the Three Doves podcast. And before we get started, I want to let everyone know that you are my sister-in-law.
Yes.
Yeah. And we're going to have a little bit of time here to discuss what God did in your story. And we're going to start at the very beginning, as I always do.
Yeah.
Where were you born? Where were you brought up?
I was born in Cleveland, Ohio, and Garfield Heights specifically.
And how long did you live there?
I lived there until I was about 13 and then moved to Fort Myers. So it was kind of like middle of 8th grade year. My parents thought it was a good idea to move me.
Were they trying to move you or get rid of you? That's what we're trying to figure out.
I mean, it seems like they were definitely trying to get rid of me. I mean, but
Not really.
Who does that?
Yeah. Well, our parents could. Yeah. The parents
I
do.
know. No, it was really great. So I'm still here. So they made a good move.
They did. Tell me a little bit about growing up here locally. Tell me your story about when you came to Jesus, when you came to Christ.
Yeah. I mean, that's like one of the great things about being here in Fort Myers. It was actually a neighbor of mine. Her family invited me to church and went to Riverside Church. And I remember the first time going, just feeling that nudge, but not really knowing that was the Holy Spirit. You just kind of get nervous. Like when the Holy Spirit's talking to me, my heart starts racing and I get really anxious kind of feeling.
Yeah.
Like I know I'm supposed to be doing something, but don't know what. So the second time I went back, I accepted Christ. And it almost felt like a formality though, because I really do remember knowing him when I was really, really young. So it kind of felt like, oh, this is how you do it. Like this is, I guess, how you make it official. How you make it, that declaration, that statement.
And after you received Christ, did you baptize right away or how did that look for you?
I did, yes. Yeah. So actually, Pastor Tony at Riverside, he
Tony Chester.
Me, married us, all the things. So yeah, he was really instrumental.
So as you were kind of walking the walk now as a new believer, tell me a little bit about where God was directing and moving you as a teenager, because it seems like you got involved in quite a few things, right?
Yeah, I think definitely you kind of have that little bit of rebellion. You think you're kind of supposed to be rebellious in high school. So I was saved and didn't really know what it meant. It took a couple of years to really dig in and dig deep. So it was probably my junior year in high school when I kind of figured out I didn't need to be like everybody else. It was okay to stand out and like stand for Christ.
Yeah.
So it took a little bit of time to find my footing.
Tell me about your parents' relationship earlier on too, because you talked about rebellion.
Yeah.
I wonder if there was a place that you can pin that back to somewhere.
Oh, pin it on my parents for sure.
Yeah, there you go. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to give you out. No.
Thank you for the help with that. Yeah, definitely want to blame them.
Yeah, just messing with you.
No, so my parents divorced when I was about 3 years old and my mom remarried and my dad eventually remarried. And so my stepdad really was the father figure in my life. But I was kind of one of those kids, in the quote unquote, like broken home, but it didn't feel like that. It felt really normal. Like I don't really.
That's why I was asking the question. Did it have any contribution to you feeling like that place of rebellion,
Yeah, I think, if we want to kind of go to like a deeper place with that, I really never understood an unconditional love from a father. So knowing everybody said, God loves us unconditionally, I really didn't understand that. And probably until most recently, that's a hard thing to understand when you're not really kind of like raised in that environment. So I do think everybody did the best they could with what they had, but I really didn't understand how God loves us.
And how do you see God loving you now today based on where you're at, with everything.
Yeah. Well, having teenagers definitely makes that very, very clear because.
Well, then we need to pause and say how many children you have currently today.
Okay. Currently today, there's 6. Last time I counted. So there's 6 children. 4 of those
amazing.
Are teenagers and then 2 little babies.
Yeah.
But really, the teenagers have taught me the most about unconditional love because I'm just like, oh my gosh, they're the worst. They keep making these bad choices, but I love them, Yeah. And so I think I've really understood the love of a father, like just raising my own kids, especially this last year's been difficult. So,
How so difficult? What do you mean by that?
As far as, one leaving the nest, another one getting ready to go, watching them make their own choices, maybe that I don't agree with, or watching them make even godly choices that's kind of taking them away, like out of, the home and anything like that. It's a hard thing. You're letting them go and you're hoping that use their free will for good.
Yeah.
But sometimes they could use it for bad. But you still love them through that. And so I've learned a lot about that unconditional love.
And in that, there's been a lot of transformation in your life. We've talked before, and even in the way that you mother your kids. And we're going to get to a place in the story soon where, you're married, your first love. But there's a lot of transformation in the fact that, you walked into something new. Tell me about when you met Brian.
Oh my gosh. It's just such a sweet, but funny story too. So we went to youth group together. I was 14. He was 17. Super controversial. But because I can't imagine my 14-year-old coming home being like, I'm going to date somebody. But that looked different back then. I wasn't allowed to drive with him. He came over to our house. He fell asleep the first time he met my parents. We watched
He
the
fell
movie.
asleep?
Yeah, he fell asleep on the couch. So my friend, I'll back up a little bit. My friend liked him, and you did that thing back in the day. Kids won't understand where you call, and then you're like, I gotta go, and your friend hangs up, but they're still really on the phone. And I was asking him questions if he was dating anyone and stuff. And
wow.
At the end of the phone call, he goes, hey, or probably towards the middle, he goes, if I fall asleep, you can just hang up. And I'm like, this guy's kind of the worst. Probably you should date him. So we ended up going to camp together, and he asked for my phone number, and we kind of started dating, but that really looked like we never saw or talked to each other. And the first time he came over to meet my parents, he did. We watched Armageddon, and he fell asleep on the couch. And all the change fell out of his pocket. It was, my dad was like, he's harmless. My dad literally was like, okay, we're not worried about it anymore. He's harmless. He's going to just fall asleep. So we dated about a month before I was like, I don't really like this. If this is dating, I'm good. We don't really see each other, talk, we went to different schools. And then we just really became friends for the next couple of years.
That's cool. And then I remember you guys you were getting involved in a ministry, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Tell me about that ministry and stuff that you guys were doing.
So we did a missions trip. Do you remember we came up to see you? It was called the Real Stuff Roadshow. Our youth pastor was just wild and shoved everybody into a big kind of tour bus. And we went up the East Coast and made our way to see you and Amy.
Yep.
And so it was neat. We did prison ministries and just different kind of ministries in the park, puppet shows for kids.
Yeah.
It was sweet, but that was the first time I really got to meet you guys.
Yes.
I think I was maybe 16 or 17 at the time.
I think close to 17.
Yeah. Yes, it would have been the summer. So I would have been going into,
That was probably the worst show or event that I was able to set up. It was raining out, remember?
I remember
the weather was dreary. There was no one came out. It was maybe 4 or 5 people from the church. And I just sat there and I said, wow, this is really bad.
Terrible.
But it was great because we got to hang out with you and Brian. In fact, I think we got you in trouble, right?
Because we left with you and never told anybody we were leaving. You're like, hey, do you want to come back to the house? You're like, yeah, sure. Essentially we were kidnapped. So
yeah, right.
Oh man, I had to sign this form.
That was before the Amber Alerts.
Yes.
Yeah.
So no, it was actually, really funny because, I got to see Amy and I remember, met Faith Ann. Faith Ann was born then, right?
Yeah,
and
we had Faith,
was pregnant with Trevor. So that was really fun.
Fast forward a little bit. You guys are dating. Mm-hmm. Tell me about the proposal.
Oh my goodness. I was such a brat. We were hanging out. I was such a brat. We were hanging out with friends and Brian wanted to go to dinner and go to the beach. And he never wants to go on like a date. And I was kind of annoyed. I'm like, we're hanging out with friends. We're back from school. We were up in Louisville in school. And so we were just back to see friends for spring break. And he wanted to go to dinner. And he said something at dinner. He's like, wow, he kind of got like an attitude a little bit. I'm like, I want to hang out with our friends.
Krista, attitude?
I know, right?
No.
And he goes, so if I propose, what would you say? I'm like, I would say no. And so, I mean, we were just kind of like bantering. I was being a brat, but trying to be funny. And we ended up going to the beach after, and it was a really sweet date. And he proposed, and I knew my family wouldn't be super excited because I was only 18 at the time.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of a shocker.
What was your family's reaction to that?
Well, he did ask them. So they could have very well said no.
Okay.
But they knew we were going to get married, you know, so they just wanted us to wait to be more stable.
Sure.
I mean, we were, you know, going to move back up without jobs and, you know, hope school went well. And, you know, we were just young and in love and dumb, but it worked out.
Yeah, it did. Huh?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more, going further in, some of the adventures that you, Brian, had together before the kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It's just wild to even think of a time before kids. Yeah, we were just the best of friends. I always thought getting married, it was just having a really cool sleepover with your best friend.
Yeah.
You know, it really was. So we got along. I mean, we took the same classes in school. We were always together. And it was just like really just neat building a life with him. And anybody who knew Brian knows how goofy he was and funny. And even when I said I was being bratty, he would just make it a joke and, you know, we'd move along. So we had a lot of great adventures, a lot of trips. We were going to school in Louisville and moved back here so he could work with his dad and all of you guys.
Yep.
And so it was really great.
Yeah. I remember some of the memories with Brian were just the best ever. We could kick around and have so much fun on the job site. Most of the time making fun of our brother-in-law, Steve, at times, and Jeff, especially. But still, not Steve though, you know, but maybe Jeff, but we love you, Jeff. But I remember many a times just hanging out with Brian, and I was just like, our personalities, just because we're opposite in a sense, we just clicked. And anywhere we went, it was almost like having like a safety blanket with you when you had Brian. Does that make sense to you?
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Tell me about that for you.
Yeah, he was the most stable person in my life. You know, he really did love like unconditionally. And I had no doubts ever that we would get through anything. And I can be really introverted. I can be really emotional. I can be really black and white. I can be all of those things that aren't necessarily great in those moments. And he would pull me out of it. I would be in my head a lot and he would pull me out of it. He would just sing really funny songs to me. He would, you know, sing a song and it was like, I rule the world because my name is Krista Davis. And he would just kind of make these songs up. And
by the way, you've had 3 last names.
I've had 3 last names.
That's why I'm like, what do I call you now?
I'm even like that. We talked about my bank accounts. I'm like, wait, which one's this under? So yeah. So he would just sing a lot of funny songs to me and so many inside jokes. My friends and I, we still have because we all grew up together. Here we are like, you know, 25 years later, we still will text each other just funny, like inside jokes about Brian. So it's pretty, he was just great. Yeah.
Yeah. I just, when you're talking, I'm having flashback memories of Brian and you guys as you know, hanging out with all your friends. And there's a lot of life around you guys in the house. And we loved when you guys came by and hung out with us. And let's fast forward a little bit further. Sure. Now you've got a couple kids under your belt.
Just a few.
And let's go with the first 2. How's life changed for you and Brian at that time?
He turned out to be an amazing dad. I can't necessarily say I went into our marriage wanting children, but I knew he did. And I knew I wouldn't be alone in it. But I wasn't the girl that grew up and I can't wait to be a mom. I was more like, why would people do that? That looks like a lot of work, you know? So,
when you're saying this, I'm thinking of my daughter right now. She's got that same thing.
Yes, she does.
Yeah,
And
Faith
I'm like,
does. Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, but you have to remember how young we were too.
Sure.
We, I was 18 when I got engaged, 19 when we got married. I was 20 when I got pregnant with Boston. I was going to school. I was in school to be.
By the way, coolest name ever.
Yes,
Boston.
Boston.
Love it.
And we named him even before we got married. When you're just young and in love, you're like, what should we name our kids? And I'm like, well, if you want kids, sure, So we named Boston.
After the Red Sox,
yes,
after the Massachusetts.
Yes.
Even Papa.
Yes.
He took a picture of a Boston, a ship. Remember that ship?
Burge Boston.
The Burge Boston.
Yes, I know.
You can't make it up.
I know you can't.
No.
And that was like around when Boston was born.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. So we had Boston.
A lot of hints of God's hand in favor.
It really is.
Right?
It really is to even think about us like having a baby when I wasn't even sure, know, and I was in school and I remember it feeling like the worst thing. Yeah. I felt like a teen mom. I was like, oh my gosh, everyone's going to know what we did. This is so embarrassing. We're so dumb. And,
You're married.
It was just, I know, it was just the worst though. And so, we were like, do we still go to the college class? What do I do about school? Because I was trying to be a nurse and all these things. And Brian's still playing video games every night. And I'm just like, I don't know how this is going to work. And the second Boston was born, Brian changed overnight. I had a lot of postpartum with Boston. Boston was very jaundiced. We had a lot of issues with him too.
Yeah, and, I remember.
Brian did every bath, every diaper change. I just remember thinking when Brian went back to work, I'm like, please don't leave me with him. What if I forget about him? What if I forget to feed him? What if I, and he's like, you're going to be fine. And I will say Brian was the biggest encourager of me as a mother, that I felt like I could have children with him because he was always building me up, as a woman, as a mom specifically, because I felt very inadequate being a mother.
Speaking of inadequate, what was God doing in you in that time?
Yeah, definitely making me lean on him. But I think now looking back, I really was making Brian my idol. I really was making Brian my God, because if Brian felt a certain way about me, I was okay. If something I kind of noticed, like a tone off, which would come later, in the journey with his mental health, I would really tank, very codependent on Brian and his feelings about me, which wasn't a bad thing at all, but I started to twist it a little bit.
How so? Yeah. How did you twist it? Tell us a little bit about that. Because there might be people listening right now who go, I'm relating. I get it. But wow, because there's a lot so far in just the 18 minutes together. There's a lot to unpack in your story.
There is a lot.
Yeah. That's why this is going to be a 2-part series, Krista, because it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. But God has done so much.
Yeah.
In so little time.
Yeah. I know.
So back to the question.
Sure. Which was?
I don't even know now. I'm lost. Where were we?
I'm lost.
Because there's so much there. This is how by the way, folks, this is how we communicate at family events and gatherings. We forget half the time of what we were talking about.
It has to be quick.
Has to be quick.
Everything's going on around us. We're probably not used to having a conversation we can carry
God
through.
was working in you during the postpartum days.
Yes.
About being dependent on Brian, codependent on Brian.
Yeah.
What was God speaking to you about that? You said Brian was your idol at that time. And we're saying there's probably people out there who are listening going, maybe I've made my spouse into that pseudo Jesus in my life.
Well, I didn't even recognize it until after he passed, because everyone's like, lean on God. And I'm like, I don't really know him. Brian was my God at that point, you know?
Wow.
And so that was really hard because you can't keep a relationship going if you're not pouring into it. It's Jesus is sitting right here and we should be communicating and talking. And I wasn't doing that. I think being in the busyness of being a new mom, feeling inadequate, not having any friends around me that had kids. I relied on Brian to, fill up that cup, and I wasn't relying on Jesus at that point. I knew he loved me. I knew he was there. But yeah, everything really, my world was revolved around Brian.
Did you feel like you withdrew from the church? You withdrew at that time, maybe in your heart from God, going through that?
It's hard to see through like a clear lens, just thinking back, because we had kids back to back to back to back. And so I think I was just so wrapped up in them, and it can be a good thing once you have like Jesus at the center of all that. But it really was, am I doing this right? I was very self-critical. I wasn't sitting there like I am now, waking up, hands open, like, how do I handle this kid? How do I handle this situation? It was like, how can I be perfect? How can I look perfect? How can I make them perfect? How can I be the perfect wife and the perfect mom? And so it was all this pressure, and I didn't need to have it. Nobody put it on me. Brian didn't put it on me. God didn't put it on me. I put it on myself.
Where do you think that came from?
I think growing up, it was a really critical environment. I didn't feel adequate as a child, a daughter. So I think I was always just trying to spin the wheels and make sure, it was perfectionism and making sure I was doing the right things, for the right people and showing up for everything. So I can't, it's all just kind of like God's working on it now, especially with having 2 younger kids. I can see the difference in raising my first 4 compared to these 2.
How was it raising 2 boys compared to raising 2 girls?
Oh my gosh, hilarious. I mean, Lincoln.
Oh yeah.
Lincoln, oh my goodness. Lincoln's taught me more about being a Christian than anybody. The patience, like, oh my gosh. I mean, just the Lincoln stories. I love that boy so much. But he would test from the minute. I just remember him being 9 months old, and I'm like, this one's not like the other. He was nothing like Boston. And so Boston, very compliant, very firstborn.
Absolutely.
And then Lincoln comes in, and, the kid's like riding a 2-wheel bike when he's like 2.5. I'm like, you're not supposed to be doing that right now, bud. Like, and
Yes.
So he would always want to hang out with the older kids and do I remember a kid was bullying Boston at the playground, and Lincoln's like 2 and going up to the kid being like, hey, and I'm like, no, Lincoln, stop. Boston made it really easy, and Boston made it easy for me to think I was a good parent until Lincoln came. And then I'm like, I have no idea what's happening. And still, I don't have any idea what's happening.
Yeah.
So I was raising my hands this morning, like, I surrender. You take him, God. He's yours. So we make the joke, Brian's kids are the worst. Jeff and I were always like, Brian's kids are the worst. Oh my gosh. So I love them though. So
yes, of course.
Yes.
Of course. And, parents listening right now, they get it. We get it. We love our kids, but there are moments.
I don't know how God deals with us.
Well,
I can't deal with these 6.
Exactly.
I don't know how God deals with us.
Yeah. Explain that. What do you mean? Tell me.
Like, how does he deal with us? He tells us like what not to do. And we're like, I'm going to do it anyway.
Right.
And then he just loves us through it. He's like, okay, that's your free will. I'm going to be right here when you come back from doing it your way. And then what do? We're like, oh God, I'm so sorry. I'm going to listen from now on. And then we go back and we do the same thing.
Correct.
And so I'm watching my kids do it over and over. And I'm just in awe of how much God loves us. And that's like growing up, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm just like watching it, and I'm watching their free will. I'm just astounded that God would give us free will. I mean, why would you give somebody that, you sent your son for free will to like turn their back against you? So I'm just mind blown right now in this last like year raising teenagers, like how much God loves us.
So you go from being all-star parent to the bottom of the pile of parenting.
Never been there.
No, well, that's okay. So I'm just saying, Boston made you feel like 5-star parent.
I felt okay.
You get to
Boston.
Lincoln, you're like, wait a minute, we're like maybe hanging on to a star. And then you get the next one comes into your life. And this beauty comes in.
Gosh.
Tell me about her.
We had lost 2 babies before Brinkley.
Yes. Tell us about that. Yeah.
It was just really traumatic because at this point we had 2 babies and we're like, this is kind of easy. Like we get to have kids. And we lost our first baby and it was really difficult because we saw the baby on the ultrasound and, and then you go in and there's no heartbeat. And, had to go through having a D&E and, going through the surgery. That's how far along I was. And that was really traumatic. And a funny story about Brian, I'm laying there about to go back to get the surgery and a nurse comes in and she's like, are you seeing Dr. Stubbs, right? And I'm like, no, that's not my doctor. And so she's like, oh, okay, hold on. And she leaves and I'm like, well, this isn't looking good. I'm probably out with a hysterectomy. And so Brian comes in and he's clenching his hands to look like he just has stubs on his hands. He starts messing around with all the machines. He's like, I'm Dr. Stubbs, and he's
that's Brian.
He's just messing around. And I'm so sad. I'm so sad. I'm crushed that we're, they're going to take this baby from me. And, and here I am and Brian just making me laugh. He's just making me laugh. Right. And that's just how he was. I just wanted to crawl into a dark hole and never come out. Yeah. And he's finding ways to make me laugh. We lost another baby a couple months, after. And that was really devastating. And at this point, everybody around us is starting to get pregnant. I'm going to baby showers and, Brian's like, okay, maybe this isn't for us. Maybe we're just going to have, the boys. He goes, I'm okay if we just have the boys. I'm like, well, I'm not, and you better get on board. So I remember him just being like, okay, if you say we're going to try again, we will. And so that's just how he was. That was who he was to me. And so when we got pregnant with Brinkley, it was a very complicated pregnancy. We thought we were losing her all the time. I was on medication to keep her rest and all this stuff. And then we got her and I tell her all the time because she's probably the one that doesn't like me the most right now. And Brinkley, I love you, honey, so much. Yes. You have to know that. Yes. She doesn't really like me right now. She's 16. And so I tell her we'll be friends when she's older. But I always tell her, I'm like, you're the one we prayed for. Stop being so mean. Yeah.
Doesn't register, does it? It doesn't register.
It doesn't. So I'm like, you're the one we wanted. So we always joke around with her, but so we had Brinkley and then we were talking about being done maybe after Brinkley and then we had a Story. And then for us, that was it. Story completed our family. So
wow. Tell me a little bit about parenting the boys compared to parenting the girls for you.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. What would you say?
Man. The boys were a lot harder when they were younger, especially with Lincoln. He was jumping off of everything and setting stuff on fire. It was just constant. And the girls are very sweet and kind, but it definitely flipped in the past couple of years where the boys got a lot funnier. I'd be sitting in the principal's office and they're telling me what Lincoln said. And I'm trying not to laugh. And then I'm like, that's not funny, and I'm like, that was pretty funny, Lincoln, but I got to act mad, or I'd pick him up from school. I'm like, hey, I would have done the same thing, but I got to look upset,
Correct.
And so it got funnier where the girls got a lot more emotionally and mentally hard. It's warfare. I'm in the trenches with the girls, but so things are vastly different between both.
When were things shifting for you in your relationship with the Lord? Through all this, when did you see that shift occur? Because I remember you talking about some things after you lost the babies. Mm-hmm. Was that when the shift was occurring or was it during that time? Tell us a little bit about.
I think it really was because after I had the losses, at that point, I was just kind of giving Brian babies because I'm like, well, that's what he wants. And he, says I can do it and okay, but then I really realized how much I did want to be a mother and how much I longed, to have children. Yeah. I didn't want to end on that note. I didn't want to end on the losses and how important it was for me to kind of move past that because it was a really dark time, not knowing if what you're praying for is coming, not knowing if you're even strong enough in your faith to handle if God says no. That's a hard
That is a hard
thing,
place. Yeah. Yeah. Because we're so used to wanting God to say yes all the time in our lives with what we ask for. But a lot of times, he answers no matter what. Sometimes it's yes. Sometimes it's no.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just wait.
Wait.
Was the waiting part through all that time difficult for you?
Very. And I think it was what's my will versus what's God's will. If I can't carry any more babies and I keep pushing it, and, is that my fault? Is that God telling me no? And I keep pushing it, saying it's his will. And so that's even hard to reckon with today. It's understanding his voice over our own. And so I was trying to understand, is this desire I have truly from God, or is it just me being stubborn and I don't want to end on 2 miscarriages?
Hey, Three Doves podcast listeners. My name is Justin Hannikin, and I've been a guest on episodes 3 and 4 of this podcast. I'm here to share with you today about a tangible way that we can live out our honest faith through real stories to see lives transformed. I'm part of a group called the Million Movement, and we have a goal to see 1 million children sponsored by the year 2050. I had the opportunity to travel to Ethiopia in 2009 to meet my sponsored child with Food for the Hungry, and my life has never been the same since. Could you take a minute and visit www.themillionmovement.com to read more about our vision? And then, if you're able to sponsor a child, you'll find a way to do so right at that link. Shoot me a DM on Instagram at the.million.movement, because I want to send you a free gift to help you on your sponsorship journey. Again, that's www.themillionmovement.com. And now back to this week's episode.
How do you identify God's voice in all that, though? Because there's so much going on.
Yeah.
It sounds like a lot of internal warfare.
For sure.
In your heart, a lot of identity. Who you believe you are.
Yeah.
Maybe who you don't know you are,
right.
The saying, who God calls you to be and who God says you are. How did that all work for hearing his voice? Where was that?
I think even now today, it's a lot of surrender. It is a lot of surrender and saying, in the posture of even open hands. And even if you don't give me this, I'm going to make it through because of you. And it really is just, and I've learned this recently in the past couple of years, but definitely having the open hands posture, not just saying that, but sitting there with the posture of just, you can take it or you cannot give it to me. Having open hands, somebody can take something or they can place something in it. And I think looking back at that time, it was just this little girl just being okay, please give me enough strength to get through, even if this isn't what you have for me. Because it did feel like a huge stopping point. I'm able to have babies until now. Is it I can't have daughters? Is it just you've closed my womb? Is this what is that? Am I going to miss these people the rest of my life? It was a lot of questioning, and a lot of pain going through a pregnancy with Brinkley. I remember Kat, our sister-in-law, telling me, you got to get the room ready. And I didn't want to.
Really?
She remembers that. I think I was 8 months pregnant. She goes, you got to get the room ready, Krista. And I'm like, well, what if I don't get her? And I remember her telling me it's not going to make it hurt any less.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I didn't even want to set up Brinkley's room, because then that would mean more disappointment. What if I have to come home without her and then I have this room ready for her? Kat's like, you think it's going to hurt more or less? It's going to hurt, so you need to at least prepare. And there's a whole sermon in that.
Do you find yourself trying to run away from hurt a lot in your life? Did you find yourself in that place?
I think it's just more of maybe when you have the expectation that people aren't going to come through or God's not going to come through, it hurts less if you don't have the expectation or don't have an expectation set very high, and came to terms with loving Brinkley as long as I could, even if she wasn't going to make it to this earth or wasn't going to make it long, So I think it's perspective. I think it's perspective on, well, I do have this baby, I do have her right now. I am pregnant with her and I need to be grateful for that, but also feeling the tension of, well, I want her forever, So there's a lot in there that God was teaching me through those losses and through Brinkley.
If someone's listening here at home, another lady who's going through, this constant miscarriage.
Yeah.
I mean, you went as far as to a DE, right?
Mm-hmm.
What would you say? What would be encouragement, from your heart to theirs? What would you say for them?
Oh, just feel it. Like, feel the loss. You have to go through it. You are mourning. It really happened. You have this baby and you are going to see him again in heaven. That really doesn't help right now when you don't have the baby, but I would just say you have to go through it and mourn. Don't listen to the people that say well, I heard it all. Maybe God doesn't want you to have more kids. Just be okay, thank you. Please step over there.
And if they're not there at that moment, it's okay, right?
Yeah, it's definitely okay. Be mad, be sad, be angry. Tell God. He knows anyways. He really does. So just you not verbalizing it, he knows. So I would just say, be honest with yourself and be honest with the loss. That is a soul. That is a baby, and you're going to hurt. Did
you journal a lot during this time? When did that start? Because, when I know enough of you because we're family, but I noticed that you're an amazing writer.
Thank you.
You're an amazing writer, and you capture so much in the way that you present the words and on your Facebook page. And, we're not even to the place yet of what's going on with Brian. We're just still in the beginning phases. That's why we're gonna have to do 2 parts, Krista. I know.
Sorry.
I know. No, it's good. Because there's a lot that God has done in this imperfect, what we call picture that we weren't seeing until we were on the other side of it and saying, whoa, wow, God,
for sure.
Even all this stuff looked messy. He was right there in the midst with you.
Absolutely.
So the journaling part, tell me about that. When did that start?
It definitely started probably through the losses, but definitely through a place of pain, a place of complete pain. And when I write even now, I can tell you everything is from a place of pain. That is me probably waking up at 3 a.m, feeling just wrecked in my soul. And so I've never been the one to be able to sit down every day and journal. I will just journal and write when I can't take the pain anymore. It's that outlet of, I just have to get this out. And it just hurts so bad. And then you finally say it and it hurts a little less. You're okay, I told somebody that, and it feels good not to live in that darkness. So,
So Krista, we're on the other side of, you going through all this stuff with the miscarriages and then the blessing of having your children.
Yeah.
And the blessing of being married to Brian. Then we start to see something switch and change.
Sure.
Tell me a little bit about what was going on with Brian.
Yeah. So looking back, it seemed pretty typical. We're young. We have 4 small kids. At this point, we're living in a tiny house and we're thinking about moving. We both are thinking about going back to school. I was a stay-at-home mom and I wanted to go back to get into nursing school. And Brian wanted to finish up because he left school to come back home and join, you guys and, the building and everything here that was going on before the crash. And he wanted to go back to school too. And he started, and we eventually decided to move. And so we're talking about really big life changes. We're moving. He's, beginning a new job. We have 4 small kids. I'm starting to go, get back into school. And it came to a point where one of us had to decide who was going to go on and finish. He had an internship to finish, and I just got into nursing school. He so graciously decided to step back from school, continue working full time, and for me to go to school. And at this time, he's pretty stressed. I mean, who wouldn't be with everything I just mentioned? He's, I would say just stressed. We're not fighting, but it's the end of the day and finally get the kids to bed and I'm working on schoolwork and we're trying to figure out how to make ends meet. It was the typical, you're in your mid-20s trying to figure it out. It took me years to kind of put it together that he was starting down the path of depression and anxiety because at this point I'm thinking, well, maybe it's me. I'm postpartum, school's stressful, his job's stressful. He switched jobs again. We bought a house that needed everything top to bottom worth of work. And I start to see these changes in him that aren't getting better as maybe our life situation got better. As I graduated nursing school, or as he switched jobs, or as our house came together, as our kids started sleeping through the night, and, you know, we're kind of hitting a sweet spot with sports with them. And he's not kind of buoying back up. You know, I would just kind of see him staying down.
Yeah.
And started just kind of mentioning that to him. And he would kind of get a little defensive, you know, and like, of course I'm stressed, you know, this and this and this. And that wasn't really like him. I mean, we were telling stories where he was a really funny guy, like super energetic, charismatic,
yes,
you know, and so there's a lot of personality changes going on.
Yes, there was. Yeah.
And so that was getting to be alarming, and that was going on for a few years.
That change, though, that was going on, that you saw, you know, me from my perspective, if I can jump in with mine, I know it's your story.
No, please.
There was times I felt like he did withdraw, as close as we got to truth about how he was feeling or something was going on.
Yeah.
He would always switch it and make something funny out of it or whatever.
Sure.
But I'll tell you, besides that switch, there was glimpses of old Brian, like when we had to all hang out during Irma.
Oh my God.
Oh, wow.
And water's coming in.
Yes. Yes. I mean, for those who were here in Florida during Irma, they were telling us it's the biggest storm of the century. And it was a huge hurricane, but thank God it was big because it didn't have as much punch as like Ian did here. But we all huddled together at your home.
Oh my gosh.
And here my wife's like, we got to run from the flooding. And I said, okay, I agree. Let's just go. And so we got in the car and we're driving. And I'm like, she's like, we're going to go over to Brian and Krista's house and we'll stay there. And in my mind, I'm going, okay, this is a hurricane. This is a 2-story home. Like, what are we doing? And and I get there and everybody. It's like a party of people.
And their pets.
Their pets. We had cats and
we took everybody in.
Dude, it was like every animal in the world. It was like Noah's Ark in a 2-story home.
There. We had everybody.
But Brian loved it.
He did.
That's what I was like. For what he was going through, he actually came to life with all that around him.
Yeah, like the chaos.
The chaos. Yeah. And we're out there, we're watching trees fall. And I know. It was chaos.
And the house was dark. We had no electricity. Everything was plywood up.
Yeah.
So how dark the house was, no electricity, hot, sticky.
Oh, it was awful. And here we all the kids, everyone's just packed in their sleeping bags. And
oh my gosh.
But it was Brian was just Brian then.
Yeah.
And it just seems like when you were talking, it started to progress worse and worse. Is that when after that?
It was definitely, in the beginning, it was hardly noticeable because we would have good days, maybe a few bad days.
Sure.
And Brian really didn't have bad days. Yeah. So that was a little like, And so when I say it was over years, you would start to have more bad days than good days. And then pretty soon that last year, there were really no good days. You know, and when I say like a good day, I'm talking he would be out of bed, interacting with me, the kids, everybody he came in contact with. And on the bad days, you really didn't know what you were going to get. And there was no warning when those were coming or how long they were going to last. And so it just, I don't know, looking back, it's easy to see when it started, but I can see how I was oblivious in the moment because of everything we were kind of dealing with is just trying to make it.
Yeah. What was the emotion there? Because I see it there in your face. What was that emotion right there?
Definitely fighting like disappointment in myself for not seeing it sooner, you know, and I know that it just wasn't possible to see. And I also know when I brought it up to him, when I would mention like, hey, you're just not yourself. Like you seem really down. Like what's going on? Like I'll leave school. Like you go back. I mean, I was coming up with every solution to what I thought were the issues.
Yeah.
And he just was like, no, and would like brush it off. Like, I'm fine. It's fine. No, we're doing this. We're doing that. We're good. And so even though I want to like put that on myself that I should have seen it, I hear the other side, like the truth, like, no, like you mentioned it. You kept pointing to it. You shine light on it, and it just, he wasn't accepting it.
What was God speaking to you and all that though? What was he working on inside your heart around all that? And maybe that was started then and it's come to here now.
Yeah, I think slowly kind of loosening that tether of my feelings were Brian's feelings. Like I talked about how when I would be really down, Brian could always get me back, get me laughing again and smiling again. And all of a sudden that wasn't there anymore. So I started having to rely on Jesus to pull me out of my mental state, to kind of pull me out of where I would get in my head about things. And so slowly God was loosening the tether of, Brian's not your God. Like you can't look to him, for, to feel better. You can't look to him to know your worth. And so that was really difficult for me. Not having that constant encouragement about being like a mother and a wife, just me asking like, God, am I doing this okay for you?
Yeah.
And that's what started to happen.
For those listening who maybe have a spouse or a loved one or who's dealing with depression, what are some things that, you might be able to share to them in hope?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got it.
That's hard because even now, people send people my way and their husbands are going through this. And the main thing I tell them is even if he doesn't come out of this, even if like there isn't a cure, like you are going to be okay. Like you are going to make it. Like you have Jesus. And that's really hard because I'm everybody's worst nightmare in that situation. So I don't know why anybody would want to talk to me, number one, because I feel like I'm everybody's worst nightmare. You're saying your husband has depression. Well, my husband had depression and it didn't work out so great. So I'm like shocked that God brings people to me to talk to me about it. Yeah. And so I think that's the ultimate thing. Yeah. Like God is still good, even if this situation isn't, and that like just sucks. That sucks knowing that some people are never gonna, come out of this. But I also do provide hope. I'm like, have you tried this? Have you tried that? There's so much available now. There's genetic testing. There's so many things that can be done now that weren't done when Brian was sick. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit. We'll just take a pause in the story here. Tell us a little bit about the ministry that God has brought you into through all this. Tell us more about it.
So that's pretty wild. So I'm a nurse by trade, but I really got into home health and mental health, home health. And now I work with a lot of mental health patients. I do advocacy. Yeah. And so that just is also wild how God has, been like, wow, Krista, you still have none of the answers, but you have a pretty messy story. So I just want you to go tell people. And I'm like, oh, this doesn't feel great. Is there anybody else? Like, is there anybody else we can send? I feel like it's almost like Moses when he's like stuttering through it. And I'm like, no, don't, don't send me. And so I don't know like how to do that or like move forward. I just solely rely on the grace of God. Like, what do you want me to tell them? And please don't let me mess it up. The main thing I say is don't make it worse. I try not make it worse. Sometimes I do. And then there's a widow's ministry that I do as well. Yeah. And
tell us a little bit about that widow's ministry, because that's very important.
Yes. Yeah. So they're amazing. Yeah. So God like brought a lot of ministries out of this that I'm not really the ministry type. So it's kind of how it works, right? It's like he brings you through stuff so you can like tell others they're going to be okay.
Yeah. You've come quite a long way. I mean, it's been, where are we going at now? Almost 7 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. Since Brian's passing.
Yeah.
And we didn't get into the story of all that in this podcast, but the amount of things that God was putting both of you through. Mm-hmm. Okay. Maybe I need to rephrase that. The amount of things that was allowed for you to go through. Is that a better way of phrasing it? Maybe
that is. And that's like a hard thing to hear though.
Right.
Like aloud.
Right. Why not? Because it's hard for me on this side of the seat.
I can't.
In talking to you through this. And I'll be honest with the listeners, this is difficult for me as much because there's a lot of emotion flooding right there. Back about Brian, you know, because I love Brian dearly, like a brother. He was a brother. I never had brothers. I still got Steve, still got Jeff, you know, I got great in-laws, you know, we're very blessed. I got a wonderful wife, great children. But you miss him, you know, you still miss him, even though we know we're going to see him.
I know.
Again, you miss him.
Yeah.
Because there's more out of this story that I think is impactful for another part 2. And I would just say, if you're willing to go there, because that's where the healing really began. And a lot of times we had opportunity to talk through some of those points of, you know, lie-based healing, things in that matter. And you sought out others who spoke and allowed you to get a lot of ministry and truth.
Yes.
Yeah. I want to thank you for being on the podcast today, the 3 Doves podcast, Krista. I know and want to thank you for being open and transparent about, you know, the painful places. And it's not easy to get there. I just leave it at that, you know, till our next time.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
As we close this episode, Krista's story reminds us that even in the middle of pain, loss, and questions that we don't have answers for, God is still present, still working, and still faithful. From motherhood to grief, from broken expectations to surrender, her journey shows you that you don't have to have it all together. You just have to keep showing up. Now, if you're in a season where it feels heavy, where it feels uncertain, hear this clearly. It's okay not to be okay. And God meets you right where you are. He's not waiting for you to fix it. He's inviting you to trust him in it. Thanks for joining us on the 3 Doves podcast. And as always, if you found something useful in this podcast, we hope you'll share it to your friends and family that they can see the love of Christ. God bless.